Hello again. We're continuing on with our series looking at the dinosaur delusion, fact or fiction, looking at some evidences that we find in history and archaeology that back up creation's point of view, the account that takes place in Genesis about the 6 days of creation, about how man and dinosaur coexisted together, because that's really the question here. If we can show that it did or prove that it didn't, then we can know for sure if the Bible is correct or if man and their thinking is correct on evolution and on whether or not uh, dinosaurs existed millions of years ago before mankind or they coexisted. Now, we looked or have looked every time at the statements that have been made by these evolutionists, these scholars, these people that are very highly regarded in their field. You have Richard Dawkins, who essentially says if we find any example that's out of place, then we have proved that the whole modern theory of evolution is utterly destroyed. You have Steve M. Stanley, any topsy turvy sequence of fossils would force us to rethink our theory or the theory of evolution. You have the old Nova TV program that had Darwin, the dinosaurs TV special there, said dinosaur footprints side by side with humans, finding them would counter evidence that humans evolved long after dinosaurs. You then have Louis Jacobs, again, president of, or former president of the Society of Vertebrate and Paleontology. Any co occurrence of man and dinosaurs, such an association would dispel an Earth with vast antiquity. Or we find dinosaurs and humans coexisting, or any evidence of it, and the theory of evolution is thrown out the window. We've looked at the Taylor Trail, again, these two uh, sequential, finally was able to say it, sequential footprints. You see the humans right there in the middle. You have the seeming to be a large animal, dinosaur like, going the other way. We had that Alvis Delt track, which is again a human footprint with a dinosaur footprint over it. All testing done has proved it to be true. We looked also last week at the Jelsa Museum. These are in Mexico, Cambrio, Mexico. You have these figures that are dinosaur like with these dermal ridges, spikes, these things coming off of their backbone. Until 1992, we didn't even know those existed. So when they were found in 45, they were told to be fake or just counterfeit. Well, how did they know to counterfeit things that we didn't even believe were on dinosaurs at the time? We then have the temple in Cambodia, which has a column that has different animals sculpted into it. Again, you can see the some kind of deer, baboon, or a monkey, some kind of ox, and some kind of bird. And then right in there with it, you have something that's very similar to what we look at and see as a stegosaurus. Today, we're going to be looking at two different things. The first one is Bishop Bell's tomb. This is a Catholic bishop who was put in on February 11th, 1478. So this is when he was put in the position. He served there for 17 years. All right, so he resigned from the position. He died in 1496. So this is when his tomb was made. It was produced. You can see a drawing there of it on the top left, and then an actual picture of it there on the bottom left. Now this slab was kind of a decorative, commemorative thing that was made. They had a well-known, well-liked person that passed away, so they made something that was beautiful to put on top of his tomb. Uh, it is right there alongside dozens of other tombs of bishops that had been there before. The important thing for us is along the edges of it, you can kind of make it out in the picture on the bottom there. There's these dark panels that are there. They're brass that are etched. And here are some of those etchings. Okay, so the brass trim that covers the tomb or surrounds the tomb has some brass etchings on it. Now you look at these are some things that you can look at and say, well, that's really easy to see. The top left there, you have some kind of maybe a crane or a bird. Right below it, you have some kind of fish. Below that, if you get close to it, you can see it's very clearly some kind of dog, probably greyhoundish in type. the top right, you can see very clearly there's a bat that's there. Below that is some kind of snake or an eel. Even below that, you have something like a possum or an aardvark, but very detailed and very easy to see that what they are is what they are. That the artist had seen them, that he copied them, that he, from his memory or from a sketch someone had given him, had engraved this. Now you might think, why does that matter? Well, you have these very specific animals that are mentioned that are engraved here, and then you have this oddity. The top one is both of these, this engraving put together, unstretched, unblown up. It has these two figures, both with long necks, very long tails. You'll notice there's also spikes, either at the head or the tail, depending on which way you think they're going. You see the the one image there blown up with the spikes on it, and then the bottom has the one side image blown up very long. You see very easily they have long, thick legs. They have a long, serpent-like snake tail, a long, thick neck. So what is it? Well, the funny thing is, the cathedral staff, when asked, my nearest guess for what it's worth, and that would not be a bad guess, is what he's saying, is it's the artist's attempt to draw a crocodile. Now, I don't know about you, but that looks nothing like a crocodile. There we have all of the other images, the engravings that were very clear, very sharp, very understandable what they were, and yet you have this image, which the staff says is a crocodile, which makes no sense, looks nothing like it, and it just doesn't fit with the rest of the animals that are on there that would have been seen, that would have been understood at the time, that would have been put on there for whatever reason. Again, remember back to the Jelsa collection that showed those spikes on the back of the dinosaurs. Well, if you notice, the far left image is a reconstruction of what some of those spikes would have looked at actually on the skeletal system. Again, those spikes wouldn't have shown up. They're not bone, they're cartilage of some sort or keratin like a rhinoceros's horn. So you have this here pictured, and the one in the middle, the one on the right are images of some artist's depiction of what a dinosaur would look like, and you look at this and it looks very similar. I mean, again, this is just kind of anecdotal stuff, but you see this image shown above that looks exactly like the image below. You have it written or done, late 1400s. It seems to be that someone saw an animal that looked like this. The next thing we notice is there's some dinosaur art here from some tombs in Peru. The picture above, you have two individuals there, Dr. Javier Cabrera, who was a geologist, and Dr. Don Patton on the right. He was a medical professor. They had heard of these etched stones, these tombs in Peru that had tapestries and pottery in there. On the bottom left there, you have a picture of some of the artifacts that were found in one of the tombs. In the early 1930s, the Cabrera guy, the Dr. Cabrera, his father found many of these ceremonial burial stones, these tombs there in the area. And this fellow has taken over his research, and he's collected 11,000 of the stones. Now, we'll notice the stones at the very end of this. But this Peruvian culture that buried their people in there dates from 500 AD to 1500 AD, long after evolutionists say dinosaurs had gone extinct, that there was no possibility of us seeing them or knowing what they looked like. The first thing is you notice a piece of pottery there and a tapestry as well. The pottery there has some kind of long-necked animal. It has, again, spikes on it. You even see its mouth open with teeth in it. Then you have the tapestry that's there. You have something extremely similar to what's in the pottery there above it, just a pattern that's done over and over and over again. like you see patterns of quilts done today with like butterflies or birds on it. It's the same thing they seem to do there. But what's really unique about this, you could argue against these saying, well, it's something else. It was just a way to make something look pretty. But it's the engraved stones that it's really unique for what we're looking at. Here we have just three of those rocks. Now remember, there's 11,000 of them. Three of them here, you see the top right one has a man riding what is clearly a triceratops. I mean, if you want to get close to your screen, look at it. You can see three horns. You can see a frill over it. You can see a man sitting behind it with what looks like some kind of peace pipe on it. Then you see the stegosaurus, and you even see the ridges on the back of it. Again, the ridges weren't known to exist until 1992, and most of these were found in the 1950s. The bottom left, again, if you get close, you'll see a man in the middle with two what looks like raptor type animals there. He has a knife in his hand. There's one that's jumping on him from behind. There's one that's attacking him from the front. Then the bottom left one, you'll see what looks like a person with a spear standing on a shore or standing on the back of this animal with water on the bottom, some kind of animal with spikes on its back, with a long neck turning and looking at the person. Now again, evolutionists say there's no way that man could know what these things look like. Dinosaur bones weren't understood until the mid to late 1800s. But here you have a culture that's engraving, weaving, pottery. Even some of the pottery has been tested, and from the ones that I've looked at, it tested to right in that time frame, 500 AD to 1500 AD. And you have them with these images on it. Now, you go back to what our scholars, our people said. If you find any fossil out of place, we've got to rethink it. Any topsy-turvy sequence, then theory of evolution falls. Any dinosaur footprints besides human footprints counters all the evidence. Evolution is vanquished if dinosaur and man fossils or evidence comes to place. Again, these are just two of a number of evidences that are out there. We'll have some more next week. Again, I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions, thoughts, or comments on it, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Just trying to give you the information that's out there and is available, but isn't being given to us like every other type of evidence that is freely given and proclaimed. So again, I hope this helps.